Hello, everyone, and thank you for stopping by. I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like a lot of the big movies that have been coming out haven't been really that good, and there hasn't been any movies that have been coming out that I've been excited for. In this video, I'm going to be going over some of the reasons that I think why some of the movies that have been coming out recently have just been garbage, and some movies that have been coming out with low budgets have been a lot better than movies with massive budgets. Before we get started, I just want to say I have Power Wash Simulator running in the background. And I hope you guys enjoy the ASMR of it because that game sucks. And as fun as it is to watch it in fast replay, go over and watch it be satisfying, the game sucks to play. This is 2 hours worth of footage. Anyways, I'm going to jump into the first point that I want to make. So if I use too many examples, this video would run on forever. So I'm going to pick two movies that I have seen, one that had a massive budget that did really bad, and another one that had a very small budget that did really well. So the first one I'm going to bring up is The Marvels, which released in November 10th of 2023. And if you didn't know that this movie existed, you wouldn't be the only person. I brought this up with some of my friends and they didn't even know this movie existed. And I feel like that's just the story with Marvel movies anymore. But this movie had a whopping budget of $378 million. And if you haven't seen this movie, I'll just say it has protagonists that you just don't really care about and an underwhelming villain. I'm not going to get into it too much because this isn't a review of the movie. It's talking about what went wrong with the movie. But the box office for the film, it only made $206 million, officially making it a flop. So the movie that I'm going to compare this to is Godzilla Minus One. The budget for Godzilla Minus One was only $10 to $15 million, which if you've ever seen the movie, it's actually kind of insane that that's all their budget. So I am going to disclose that my brother does say that I only say this movie was really good because when I was younger, I used to love the Godzilla movies that were coming out. But to prove to him as well as anyone else that doubts me, I'm just going to show right here that they had an award for Best Visual Effects of 2024. So to my brother and anyone else that thinks that, ha! But anyways, looking at these two budgets and wondering how one movie with $360 million budget can be outdone by a movie with a $10 million budget. I'm going to just say that I don't know the answer, but I do have some theories. So the first theory that I have, the Marvels isn't really the best one for this guess, but to just put it straightforward, I think the actors are overpaid. So you can pretty much use any of the Avengers movies, but just since Endgame is the most recent one, I'm going to use Endgame as my example of this. So the budget for Endgame was $356 million. And just to give you an idea of how much the actors made, just between Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, and Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson, they made $60 million between them. So 16% of their budget was spent just paying for 5 actors in the movie. And this movie had an all-star cast. So you imagine what they paid everyone else to be there. I also just want to add that this money that I mentioned, the $60 million, that was just upfront cost. And they actually each made commissions based off of how much the movie earned itself. So those 5 actors actually made significantly more money than that. But I just wanted to mention that because that extra money, the commissions, that doesn't count towards the budget of the movie. So let's just assume that only half of the budget was spent on actors. That is still a ton of money that is just being wasted and blown away, just paying for actors to be on screen for not even that long. And I feel like that really cuts into the budget because this movie, we expect to have a $368 million budget movie. But in reality, the movie's only really having like half of that. And only a small portion of the movie's actually going towards having the writers write a good story, having good effects, and all the other important stuff that they just overlook. And that actually leads into my next point that I want to make. But going back to the Marvels versus Godzilla Minus One, I think that shows us that having a ton of money in effects doesn't necessarily make the movie good. In other words, having bad writing and character development in movies makes the movies really bad and unlikable for people that are watching it. Like I said about the Marvels, you just don't really care about the characters, and it's not, whenever there's something intense happening, you just don't really care because you don't feel like you're going to lose anything if the characters were to die or something were to happen. But some of the best movies that I've ever enjoyed have been movies where you care about the characters and at the same time, they don't have plot armor and you never know what's going to be their fate. I'm going to avoid doing too many spoilers for the movie, but in Godzilla Minus One, the character that it follows in the story just really has an interesting story and it makes you really feel for him and care about him. And whenever Godzilla's on screen, you're actually worried for the main character and you're worried he's going to die. So when Godzilla comes on screen, you're actually kind of hoping he doesn't come on screen because you don't want the main characters to die. And actually, one thing I really love about the story of Godzilla Minus One is that you just don't feel like the main character has any plot armor, and that you can feel like he's going to die at any moment. And all the other main characters, you just never, no one is ever actually safe. And you just, like I said, I just like movies that don't have plot armor. Okay, I'm going to rephrase that because obviously movies, like, people have plot armor, like, because if the main character is not going to die in a movie, at least not in the middle point of the movie. But I feel like a movie that makes you feel like, even though you know they're not going to die, it makes you kind of wonder in the back of your mind, like, are they going to die? I think that does really good for the story. A TV show actually that I think does this really well is Game of Thrones. And I think something that made this show really good, and a show that I really liked, was that there wasn't any characters that had plot armor, and anyone can die at any point, even if their character development wasn't done. And I think that's really good for a show or a movie. So the next thing I'm going to discuss is going to be poor writing and storytelling. And I'm going to introduce 3 new movies. And I'm just going to mention now that the 3 movies I'm going to bring up are all animated movies. So the first one I'm going to bring up is Megamind 2. And if you didn't know there was a number 2 that came out, I'm not going to lie, I didn't either until I was looking up this video. And I started watching it, and it was trash. But just going to add to the first point I made, the budget for this movie was $130 million. So the next movie I'm going to mention is Wild Robot. And this movie was actually really good, and it had a small budget of $78 million. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but for an animated movie, that's actually a ton of money. And for example, like the third movie I'm going to bring up is Mufasa, the one that came out recently. And that movie's budget was around $200 million. So I'm going to admit right now, I haven't seen the new Mufasa movie, but I heard it wasn't that great. And though it didn't do amazing in the box office, it did come out at least on top, so it's technically not a flop. I'm mostly adding it here just as a baseline of how much a movie from Disney costs to make. Animated movies anyways. But the point that I want to bring up with bringing up The Wild Robot was that movie did really well with such a small budget. And I think what it did really well was having a really good story that brought emotion and a really good story. Going back to the point I made about Godzilla Minus One is this movie actually made you really care about the characters. And even though you didn't really ever think they were going to die, you actually started having emotion for them and caring about them. And I think that is 90% of the battle when you're making a movie. And that's to say, having a character that you actually care about and that are relatable. Because like I said with the Marvels, the characters just, you don't really care about them and they're not relatable. And that just makes it so you don't really care too much about the movie. You don't have much stock into it. Okay, so I'm going to go into more now on why I added Mufasa to this list. I feel like it's been a trend lately in Hollywood where the producers will take something that was really popular or something that's very beloved by people, and they'll just completely take it and go their own way with it and completely butcher it. And that's all that going with this Mufasa story really was, is they took a beloved movie, The Lion King, and they took it first and they made a live action movie of it, which nobody really even asked for. But all the Mufasa movie really is a quick cash grab of a name that is really popular and beloved, and they know people will go watch just because it is based on The Lion King and it's a prequel. There's more to the story and people will go to it expecting a good movie. I'm not going to rag on the movie too much because I haven't seen it yet, but I just know that that's what it's going to be. And Disney's been the worst at it. They take old titles and then just make remakes of the movie, just hoping that they can get a quick cash grab off of a name. And I'm going to bring up another TV show actually, but I'm going to kind of add with this that they're just taking beloved titles and ruining it. But they're also taking these beloved titles and they're doing their own thing that they want with these movies and TV shows. But just an example of a TV show that they took a beloved game and ruined was Halo. That TV show was the biggest insult to gamers that I've ever seen. The producers of the show knew that people wanted a Halo movie for a long time, and they knew that people would have watched it no matter what. And I just felt like they did really bad. And I knew right off the bat that the TV show was going to be terrible when the director said that he wasn't even going to watch or play the games at all. But my point of bringing this up is just bringing the point that people are just trying to get in there and get a quick cash grab off of really popular titles. So we get excited for these movies coming out, but they just don't really put any effort into it, or they just don't really care about the story and they just want to do their own thing and they ruin something, and it just makes movies terrible. But at the same point, even if a movie was good and they didn't follow the story or the source, it still will become really bad and not liked, and it will do terrible. Just to list a couple of examples, Warcraft, the movie, that was a fantastic movie, got canceled for the second movie because they didn't follow the story and fans hated it and it just got shot down. The next one I want to bring up is the Percy Jackson TV show. I don't think the show was inherently bad, but because it didn't follow the story at all or the book or anything like that, it just got shot down so much and people just didn't really like it. And I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of my butt because I don't really know the numbers on it, but I know I didn't like it because of that. But I'm also wanting to say that I didn't think it was a bad show. It just didn't feel like Percy Jackson, didn't feel like the story that I read and liked. And another one that I actually made a whole hour-long video on, Aragon. That was a really good movie, but because it didn't follow the source at all and they completely butchered the story and everything, down to the characters and development and everything, the movie just did terrible and it was hated by the fans and nobody liked it. But if that movie was just a standalone dragon film, it had some fantastic visuals and a decent story, and I feel like it would have done really good if it was on its own two legs and didn't have the Aragon name with it. But anyways, I'm going to conclude with just kind of wrapping everything up. I think a big problem with movies lately is corporate greed, as well as just like overpaid actors, as well as just bad story writing. It just seems like the film industry is just looking for however they can get a quick buck and not really caring too much about it. And it just kind of just makes things lackluster at best. But we see the same thing with the gaming industry, where gaming companies are just putting out these games that are just trash, and now indie games are just becoming super popular, and third-party developers are coming out with these games that have low budgets, but they're just doing really good because they're putting out what people actually want and they're not just trying to make a quick buck on things. I hope that we can get to a point in this world where I can look forward to a movie coming out anymore, because I just feel like it's just turning to this point where a movie will be coming out and I don't even look forward to it because I just expect it to be bad. But I am hopeful, and I hope that the story writing and the character development and all this stuff will become better. But well, who knows? We'll see. But anyways, thank you for making it this far. If you have, this is only my second attempt at making a video like this. So let me know how I can improve and other things you might like to see. Did you like the background video of Power Wash Simulator? I was trying to think of something to add, and I was just like, I'll just think of something kind of like ASMR like. But be sure to like the video if you want to see more like this, as well as subscribing and commenting on the video. That really helps support my channel and what I do here, and I really appreciate all the support I've been getting on all my videos. Anyways, thanks again, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you.